Stewart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers, a so-called militia organization, was indicted by the Biden Department of Justice for seditious conspiracy, saying that he was an insurrectionist that almost took over America. He was being housed in federal custody, and he tried to get out of custody, wanted a detention hearing so that he could get out pending trial, so that while the case is ongoing, he could be a free man, live in society. But the judge said, not going to happen. You recall, this was a copy of the indictment from the grand jury sworn testimony. It took place early in January 8th, 2021. We can see that all of this was about seditious conspiracy involving this guy, Stewart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers. You can see his name is right here, and he's got counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9. So seditious conspiracy, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. We've got obstruction of an official proceeding and aiding and abetting. 4 is conspiracy to prevent an officer from discharging the duties. And then number 9 down here, tampering with documents, aiding and abetting. All of these, of course, related to January 6th. And this is taking place out of the district court out of Washington, D.C., but this judge out of Texas is saying that his detention request, his request to be released, is denied, and he is supposed to be detained. He's going to be detained pending the outcome, pending the trial or resolution of the case. You can see that he was charged with seditious conspiracy. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but the idea here is this is very, very sort of a sparse law. Not a lot to dig into. It says if 2 or more persons in any state, in any place, conspire to overthrow by force the government of the United States or any of these other things, they can be entitled or sentenced to 20 years of prison. And so that is what Mr. Rhodes has been charged with. But what are the Oath Keepers? Who are the Oath Keepers? You can see that there was an organization event that took place on January 28th back in 2011. Stewart Rhodes is right here. And they've got a Freedom's Finest Phoenix webpage, and they had an event, looks like on January 28th. And so this is the type of stuff they do. This is orders that we will not obey, right? They've got a sort of a list of different things that they follow. We're not going to obey orders to disarm the American people, not going to obey orders to conduct warrantless searches and things like that. So they've got sort of a list of criteria that they follow. And you'll notice that right next to Stewart Rhodes is this fella. This fella appears to be Ray Epps. Ray Epps, you'll see here. Ray Epps, that guy right here, walking with Stewart Rhodes. You can see right there. And so these two must have been pals at some point in time, because you can see here's Ray Epps once again standing right next to Stewart Rhodes some time ago. So interesting. You can see here they are playing a memorial service for somebody. Ray Epps and Stewart Rhodes. All right, and so you can see, of course, Ray Epps is the guy that we've talked a lot about. He was listed here, photograph number 16. According to the FBI, somebody very, very important. They wanted him, so much so that he was, in fact, the top 20 of the people that they first released seeking information about. And so Stewart Rhodes, friends with Ray Epps on the west side of the Capitol during that breach that took place at 12:53. You can see that these two guys sort of part of the same group. However long ago this was, very interesting connections there. But all right, so let's take a look now at the detention order. So this is Stewart Rhodes being prosecuted by the United States of America. The plaintiff, Stewart Rhodes, is the defendant. This is taking place out of Texas, presumably where Mr. Rhodes is currently being housed still. Says that the defendant is now going to be detained as a result of our entire inquiry. Mr. Rhodes is not going to be leaving federal custody. And this is what the judge writes. First, we got to take a look at the legal standard. We're going to reference the Bail Reform Act. Crime of violence, it gives us some details about what that means and when this type of rule is applicable. It also gives us some guidance about what might justify pre-trial release. In other words, what criteria might support Stewart Rhodes being released from custody. The nature and circumstances of the offense, the weight of the evidence against the person, the history and characteristics of the person, including their physical and mental condition, past conduct, history, other issues that may have come up like offenses or arrests. Also need to consider the seriousness of the danger to any person, and if the court considers all these factors, they can decide that there's no condition that would reasonably assure that Stewart Rhodes would show back up or that the community would be safe. And if there's nothing that can support that, then Stewart Rhodes needs to stay in custody. What happens here, Stewart Rhodes goes over and he meets with an organization from the government, and they prepare a pre-trial services report. And this is what they are sort of drafting based on their investigation that they're submitting to the court, and they're saying, Judge, look at all this information we've gathered. Please use this to guide your decision whether you want to release Mr. Rhodes or not. Here's what the judge summarizes for us. Says, defendant is the founder of Oath Keepers. They allegedly are a sort of a group of organization of people that defend the Constitution. He's been employed by this organization since 2010 when it was founded. He went to Yale Law School, sharp guy, but got disbarred from practicing law in 2007. Was also in the Army from 1983 and was honorably discharged back in 1986. Defendant has a father in Arizona, shout out, with whom he has no contact, and two sisters with whom the defendant remains close. Both sisters in Minnesota, mother's dead. Defendant has been married to Tasha Adams since 1996, but they are estranged. We are going to hear from her because she chimes in at the detention hearing. Miss Adams filed for divorce in 2018. The divorce is still pending. She has a GoFundMe. We'll take a look at that. Miss Adams resides in Montana, couple, 6 children. Defendant reports he's got telephone contact with his children every couple months. Also says he's in a relationship with somebody else named Kelly. According to pretrial services, they tried to contact Kelly Soriel, unsuccessful in those efforts. Defendant reports he lives in Texas along with his girlfriend, been there since May. They reside in an apartment that the girlfriend has. Defendant also reports that, quote, he spends a considerable amount of time at his friend's house in Texas. Previously been to other places, Arizona from 2004 to 2005, Connecticut, and elsewhere, and he has no reported criminal history. Reports, though, that he has not paid his federal income tax since approximately 2007. Not paying taxes. And so that's the summation from the pretrial services report. But here now is more details about what took place at the detention hearing. To make an argument, Stewart Rhodes doesn't want to be sitting in jail while this is all unfolding. He wants out. So the court held a detention hearing on January 24th, 2022. U.S. showed up with their prosecutors. Prior to the hearing, they filed a memo in support of holding him. Court read that. They've considered their arguments. Mr. Rhodes and his defense did not file a response. So we don't know if he's lawyered up or what is happening, but no response was filed. Pretty interesting. Government brief contains references to evidence that was not presented during the hearing. The evidence that they're presenting, they're saying they've got this special FBI agent named Palian, described some of the events. He's talking about November 2020 after the election. Oath Keeper wanted to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, says that under the direction of this guy, Stewart Rhodes, many of them stormed the Capitol, and they brought in with them tactical gear like hats and helmets and knuckle gloves and other things. In addition, he organized tactical armed support that were staged in the D.C. area. This is alluding to the QRF, right? The Quick Reaction Forces. Oath Keepers, according to this document, to the pretrial services, to this judge, says that they tried to prevent the certification of the presidential election. Federal agents recovered encrypted messages sent on their phones where they discussed the need to intimidate Congress and incite violence and plans for taking part in an armed assault on the government. Says these text messages showed up between Rhodes and other co-conspirators. Something like, I'm in direct contact with the Serbian author of that video. Her videos are excellent. Here is his written advice to us. And they write it all down here, saying that what we probably need to do, peaceful protest, then talking about a foreign puppet government, and then storming Parliament, burn down the fake TV, and we won. Saying that you are going to have to fight to the end. We must all do the same. Take that glorious flag. Kiss your old Quran, your Bible. Do what you need to do. Make your grandsons proud. Saying that in December 2020, there was another exchange. Co-defendant says, we need to surround the Capitol all the way around with patriots so they can hear us inside. Scare the heck out of them. With 1 million surrounding should do the trick. Rhodes says, I think Congress will screw him over. The only chance he has is if we scare the heck out of them and convince them it's going to be torches and pitchforks time if they don't do the right thing, but I don't think they'll listen. So I guess that is sedition according to the judge, and that justifies holding him. In other text messages, defendant likened the Oath Keepers to early Sons of Liberty, saying that he regularly used terms like civil war and revolution to describe their objectives. In at least one instance, he described a civil war as being massively bloody. So that is illegal, I guess. Evidence gathered during the federal investigation indicates that they engaged in extensive planning. The defendant personally coordinated with chapter leaders, including Florida and Alabama, to maximize the raid, and he used encrypted chats and video conferencing software. He encouraged Oath Keepers across the country to oppose the peaceful transfer of power, and he volunteered to pay for hotel rooms and maps and communications for those willing to participate in what they call the raid. And they say he also formed these QRFs, these quick reaction forces, comprised of individuals that had a lot of weapon that were brought by the Oath Keepers, and that he purchased over $20,000 worth of firearms. We talked about that in a prior video. During the raid, evidence shows that he was coordinating directives like saying, call me please, call me, go to the south of the Capitol, that's where I'm going to link up. Saying that the defendant never actually entered the Capitol building, but he was on the grounds and he coordinated activities who did enter the building, who staged the QRF, and who met with co-conspirators. After they retreated, immediately after the raid, defendant and other Oath Keepers, they met for dinner. They went to the Olive Garden, had some good breadsticks. While there, they learned that officers had begun arresting individuals, and Agent Palian said defendant and the groups themselves left Virginia to get out of there. They continued to talk about the illegitimate regime and bought even more firearms after all this took place, just gobbling up guns everywhere they went. To rebut the government's contention that the defendant is a flight risk, the defense elicited testimony that the defendant has cooperated with federal authorities, saying that he actually worked with the feds. They said that he complied with a federal warrant, giving them his cell phone, passcode, biometric data. Agent Palian also said that he volunteered to self-surrender if he was indicted. On the day of his arrest, he met officers outside the house where he was residing. Totally complied. But, they said, defendant had already attempted to destroy evidence in the underlying investigation. Forensic expert revealed that he learned, after he learned agents were coming after him, he began deleting potentially incriminating messages from the encrypted chats, encouraged other co-conspirators to do the same because defendant believed an FBI informant could access the messages. And so he's trying to say, I'm being very accommodating and useful, but the feds are saying not so fast. Now, at this detention hearing, we also hear from his sort of estranged wife. They're still married, but on the way out, her name is Tasha Adams. She's on Twitter here at @ThatGirlTasha. And she has here, it says, journalists, no need to guess my thoughts on the ex, Stewart Rhodes. You can always just ask. I am oh so full of opinions on the matter, so just let me know. On her website, it says she's an ex-ballroom dancer, ex-stripper, hunter, hobby farmer, writer, shepherdess, and mom. Literally just found my voice. I think I'm going to use it. And so if you click this link here, it says, help me finish this stupid divorce after 4 years of purgatory. And if you click that, it takes her over to the GoFundMe page. $14,000 raised. Tasha Adams is organizing this, saying, I've been legally separated, trying to complete the divorce process with my now infamous soon-to-be ex-husband. My case has been sealed. I'm not allowed to talk about it. However, I can say that my former law firm dropped me because I couldn't keep paying them. I burned through my $5,000. $12,000 is where it's going. I need some help. Can you donate? People are donating. And so if you want to support her, of course, feel free to do that. Here, she called into the hearing and was very unhappy at the idea that Stewart Rhodes might be let out. Shortly after the hearing, defendant's wife, Adams, contacted the court, said that she should be permitted to offer information about this situation. After conferring with counsel on the afternoon, the court conducted a hearing and said all parties can be present. Adams showed up, said, I married this guy in 1994. We got 6 kids together, but I filed for divorce in 2018 due to the defendant's violent tendencies, and this divorce proceeding is still pending. Adams testified she fears for her safety and the safety of her children if Rhodes is released. Testified that throughout their marriage, defendant would brandish firearms in the family home, and he would physically abuse the children under the guise of practicing martial arts. Also invite the children to practice martial arts when he was angry. Adams claimed that the defendant would lose it. Miss Adams described one such incident where a defendant choked the couple's daughters and the son intervened to take his grip off. Said that he's violent, it has become more frequent, and that the children were in danger. She admitted, though, that she never filed a police report or reported the incident to friends or family. Oh, that's convenient. So for a long time, not a big deal. Now she's getting a divorce, suddenly a big deal. Ms. Adams testified she applied for a temporary restraining order based on his tendencies, but it was denied. Adams is unsure if his previous behavior is noted in the divorce petition. In other words, did you put any of this in the divorce, or are you just making this up now? I can't remember. Curious. Neither Miss Adams nor the children have seen him since 2018. Miss Adams also said that Rhodes was fearful of being, quote, picked up by the feds. Said that when they were married, he installed elaborate escape tunnels in their backyard, hid unregistered cars in the woods, purchased hundreds of dollars of razor wire, which he intended to install around the perimeter of the property, concealed from view, quote, in case the feds ever came to his door. From Tasha Adams. And so what the judge is going to do now is go through those different factors that we talked about earlier on in this video and just do sort of an analysis and say, does Stewart Rhodes meet these criteria that might justify his release? Here's what the judge says. They say that the court finds that based on the evidence that's been presented, the government has proven by clear and convincing evidence that no condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the safety of any person or the community. And they've also proven that no condition will reasonably assure that this guy's going to show back up to court. They say the weight of the evidence against him is strong. They say it reveals he participated in this thing, and so he's not going to have a very good shot if this moves forward. They take a look at his history and his characteristics. This is the judge, Priest Johnson, says that, yeah, he went to Yale Law School, smart guy, no prior criminal history. Although these facts would typically weigh in favor of release, she's going to twist this into a pretzel and say the court questions the defendant's willingness to obey the court because he admits himself that he hasn't even filed taxes in 2007. He's a former lawyer, already disbarred. He knows he needs to file taxes and he's not doing it. So I'm going to use that as an indicator that he just doesn't follow orders. Further, evidence says that he planned and coordinated a sophisticated attack on the U.S. government. As a former attorney, he knows you're not allowed to do that, but he did it anyways. And so Judge Johnson is saying that supports holding him in custody. Says the nature and the seriousness of the danger posed by the defendant. Says it's not unusual for people to be mad about the election, but it is unusual for people to go and try to take over the country. Here, this is not peaceable assembly. And so he's already indicated that he's a dangerous person. If we let him out, this judge believes he's going to continue to be a dangerous person. Judge Priest Johnson says, on balance, the evidence in the record overall indicates the release could endanger the safety and well-being of others. This factor weighs in favor of detention. For the reasons stated herein, the motion for detention that was filed by the government is granted. Defendant shall be detained pending trial and thus remanded to the custody of the U.S. government. He must be afforded an opportunity for private consultation with defense counsel. He's got to show up for a congressional subpoena, and everybody needs to make sure that he is properly transported. Signed by the judge, January 26, 2022. So, like many other defendants who've been charged as a result of the January 6th so-called end of America, Stewart Rhodes is going to remain in custody. Guy with no criminal record at all. Doesn't seem like he's got any real hints of being a flight risk on his record. We do see that he doesn't pay taxes. That judge thinks that that is enough, combined with all of the other presuppositions about what the government is alleging happened on January 6th, saying that he was the leader of it all, I guess. And so he's going to sit in custody as many of the other January 6th defendants continue to sit in custody. We'll follow this case along with the others, as we continue to demand that justice be done, regardless of who the defendant is. Everybody deserves due process, equal protection under the law, and the presumption of innocence, including and especially the January 6th protesters and Stewart Rhodes. Let me know what you think about it. I'd love to see your comments down in the comment section below. Would love it if you also subscribed, as we have a live show that we do weekdays, and I would love it if you joined us there. There's a red button down there. Subscribe. If you hit that, it's going to turn gray. That means you did it right. And I would love it if you did that, because I look forward to seeing you on the next one.